That flicker of rage in her eyes, I'll never forget it. Sierra stood over me, the empty wine glass still dripping red onto my dress as I reeled in shock. "Whoops," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. In that moment, something ignited within me, a spark of defiance I thought had long faded. I slowly rose to my feet, the sticky wine seeping into my skin as we locked eyes in tense silence. "You spiteful witch!" My voice came out steady, undergirded by newfound strength. "How dare you? In my own home that I opened to you." Sierra scoffed. "Don't be so dramatic, Evelyn. It was an accident. Right, babe?" My eldest son, Derek, watched impassively from the sofa, offering neither defense nor apology. Sierra sauntered over, draping herself on his lap as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just publicly degraded his own mother. I stood motionless as they dissolved into giggles, the sting of humiliation washing over me. This was the last straw. Sierra had chipped away at my dignity ever since she married into our family 3 years ago, slowly eroding the harmony in our home. Her vanity, selfishness, and spoiled coddling by my husband had blinded Derek to her subtle cruelty. But this act of violence, masking malice with feigned innocence, opened my eyes fully to the abuse I'd quietly endured from her. From them both. My hands balled into fists. I saw myself then not as a frail 68-year-old grandmother worn by illness, but a proud fighter ready to reclaim my power. Enough was enough. I refused to let Sierra's toxicity infect our family any longer. As I retreated upstairs, my mind racing with plans, I knew the time had come to fight back. I would start by reaching out to the one person I knew I could trust unconditionally, my youngest son, Alex. "Mom, that's horrible. I had no idea," Alex said. His forehead creased in concern as I recounted the wine incident. I'd asked him to meet me discreetly at a cafe down the street from our family home, not wanting Derek or Sierra to suspect anything. "She's a parasite," I said bitterly. "I was blind to not see how she's manipulated all of us until now. She and Derek, they've been bleeding me dry financially ever since they moved in, hoarding my money to fund their lavish lifestyle while I struggle." Alex nodded gravely. "I noticed designer clothes and fancy new gadgets, but whenever I asked Derek, he'd say it was from his big promotion at work." I let out a mirthless laugh. "All lies to hide their exploitation. Sierra thinks I'm weak, an easy target, but I'll prove her dead wrong." My son regarded me with care. "What can I do to help, Mom?" I reached across the table and squeezed his hand, my first genuine smile in months creeping onto my face. With Alex by my side, I felt emboldened, like I had an army at my back. "First, I need you to quietly gather evidence about their financial abuse," I said. "Bank statements, receipts, anything we can use as proof. Confronting them outright won't work. They're too manipulative. This requires strategy." Alex nodded firmly. "Of course. What next?" I took a long sip of chamomile tea, savoring the calm before the storm I would soon unleash on Derek and Sierra. "Next," I said coolly, "we destroy their lives like they've destroyed mine." "More wine, Mother?" Sierra's mocking tone cut through the tense silence that had descended on our usually cheerful family dinner table. Ever since the spilling incident, as I'd come to call it, Sierra had taken to publicly needling me in petty ways, all under the guise of sweet concern. I simply stared back stonily, refusing to gratify her twisted bullying with any visible reaction. Sierra's painted lips twisted into a scowl at my non-response. "Oh, let it go, love." My eldest Derek jumped in, always the peacemaker blinded by his wife's superficial charms. "No need to give Mom grief. It was just an accident after all." "Some accident," Alex muttered under his breath as he aggressively speared a carrot slice. My youngest had grown increasingly disgusted by Sierra's behavior since we'd had our secret cafe strategizing session last week. "What was that?" Sierra snapped. Nothing. Derek, ever the oblivious optimist desperate to keep up pretenses, waved his hand. "Now, Sierra, be polite. We're lucky Mom welcomed us into her home when we needed help." I bit my tongue, holding back the fiery retort on the tip of my tongue. We all knew Sierra and Derek hadn't moved in with me out of any familial sentimentality or hardship. After recklessly draining their savings on frivolous luxuries, they'd targeted my vulnerability as a widow living alone, seeing a chance to bleed my retirement savings dry under the guise of needing shelter. Well, not for much longer, you parasites. The thought ignited a spark of anticipation within me. After dinner, I was meeting Alex at his apartment, where he would show me the financial evidence of Derek and Sierra's lies that could ruin them. "So Derek," Alex interjected, "how's the big promotion going? Must be demanding work." Though his tone sounded innocent enough, I detected the subtle confrontation in his words, a thinly veiled suggestion that perhaps Derek's promotion was as false as the rest of the web of deception he and his wife had spun. My eldest shifted uncomfortably under Alex's gaze, a flicker of something like guilt passing over his features. Going great," he managed after a pause. "Just wrapped up a big project, so things are calmer now." "How lovely for you both," Sierra trilled, placing a hand over Derek's in a show of wifely solidarity. Her sharp eyes, however, glared daggers at Alex. Sensing the simmering tension, Derek cleared his throat and rose abruptly from the table. "Well, delicious dinner as always, Mom," he said with forced joviality. "I've got some emails to catch up on for work, so I'll excuse myself." With a quick peck to Sierra's cheek, Derek hurried off. Sierra and I locked eyes as Alex began gathering dishes. The sweet facade she adopted for my son's benefit had slipped, unveiled malice marring her perfectly made-up features. "You want a war, witch?" I thought defiantly. "You've got one now, and I intend to win." I awoke with a start, momentarily confused by the faint crashing sounds coming from downstairs. Bleary-eyed, I glanced at the clock. 2:37 a.m., blinked back angrily. My heart began to pound as more muffled bangs echoed up to my bedroom, followed by raucous laughter. Derek and Sierra. Of course. I slowly shuffled to my bedroom door and cracked it open. The couple had just returned from a rare date night out, no doubt funded by my stolen money. As their cackles grew louder, so did my boiling anger. Not only had those parasites wrecked my peaceful home with their constant demands, now they robbed me of sleep too? This had to end. Now. As I crept halfway down the stairs in darkness, the scene in my trashed living room came into focus. Derek was sprawled out on my good couch, shoes still on, and giggling drunkenly. My antique coffee table had been shoved aside carelessly, various bottles and chips littering the floor. Sierra wasn't faring much better, stumbling back from the kitchen with a bottle of my vintage wine in hand. I watched in outrage as she staggered against my bookshelf, sending a framed photo of my late husband crashing to the ground. At the shattered glass, Sierra simply cackled harder. Red-hot rage surged within me. These entitled brats had waltzed into my home, bled my bank accounts dry with manipulative lies, and now trashed my belongings like rebellious teenagers. I had enough evidence of their financial deceit to destroy them, courtesy of Alex's intel. Now this blatant property disrespect was the last straw. Steeling myself, I flicked on the lights and stomped into full view. "What in God's name do you think you're doing?" My voice boomed through the tense silence. Still in her glittering dress, Sierra froze mid-pour of the wine. Derek shot bolt upright, eyes widening at the damage surrounding him. We, he stammered before falling silent under my searing glare. After a weighted pause, Sierra let out an exaggerated sigh. "Oh, don't look so scandalized, Evelyn. We were just having a little fun." She attempted a breezy laugh and raised her glass flirtatiously towards me, as if to diffuse the situation with her usual coquettish charm. I stalked forward until we were nearly nose to nose, pleased to see a flicker of uncertainty in her made-up eyes. "How dare you?" I said, my voice low and steady despite my trembling fury. "How dare you vandalize my home that I opened to you, you ungrateful, spoiled brat?" Sierra's lips curled into a sneer. All pretenses dropped. "Or what? What will you do about it, old lady?" She stepped even closer, wine fumes assaulting my nostrils as she snarled. "Nothing, because you can't do a damn thing. You're weak and helpless, completely at our mercy, so why don't you scurry off back to bed like a good little old bitch?" My palm cracked across her cheek before I even realized I'd swung my fist. The slap split the heavy silence like a gunshot. As Sierra let out a shriek of pain and outrage, clutching her face, I felt a rush of dark satisfaction. "Get out," I whispered. "Both of you, get your things and get the hell out of my house." Their destruction had gone too far. It was time for war. "You can't kick us out. This is Derek's family home, too." Sierra's shrill voice echoed through the foyer. I crossed my arms, unaffected by her hysterics. After tossing the drunken couple out last night, following Sierra's cruel barbs, I'd given them until noon today to pack their things and leave. Of course she hadn't gone quietly. Not anymore, I said coldly. I've shown Alex all the proof of your lies and theft. My lawyer is filing an official eviction notice today. I saw Sierra's hazel eyes flare with anger and perhaps panic before she caught herself. When she spoke again, her voice dripped with false sweetness. Evelyn, let's be reasonable, she purred, sliding up to grasp my hands in faux sincerity. This is all a big misunderstanding. We would never want to intentionally hurt you. I ripped my hands from her grip. Save it. The bank statements prove exactly where my missing retirement money has been going, straight into funding your lavish shopping sprees. Sierra opened her mouth to retaliate, but I held up a hand. I don't want to hear any more lies. You have 2 hours before I call the police. As I turned on my heel, I felt the familiar flare of pain in my lower back from my spinal condition. The doctor said stress always aggravated it, and dealing with these toxic leeches in my home had pushed me past my limit. Gritting my teeth against the spasms, I reached for the bottle of prescription oxycodone to ease the torment. To my dismay, I found it empty. Strange, I just had it refilled. Before I could ponder further, Sierra barged into my bedroom unannounced. Missing something? She asked sweetly. Dread curdled my stomach at the sight of my pill bottle dangling from her manicured fingers. I figured you didn't need these anymore since you'll have so much peaceful relaxation without us here nagging you. I lunged forward, but Sierra anticipated me, cackling as she danced out of reach. To my horror, I watched as she stormed into my bathroom, our bathroom, and held the pills precariously over the toilet bowl. No! Stop! I need those! The rest of my plea died in my throat as she let them slip from her grasp into the swirling water with a splash. My heart dropped as months' worth of precious pain relief disappeared in seconds. Whoopsie! Sierra tilted her head, regarding me with mock concern through her thick, mascara-coated lashes. Butterfingers. I'd fish them out, but... ew! Momentarily speechless with rage, I stumbled past her towards my jewelry box on the counter. If she thought a little pain would stop me from banishing them, she was dead wrong. But when I opened the box, I found it empty. Now I knew why the scheming addict had trespassed uninvited into my private space. The sight of my most treasured pearls and heirlooms stolen and discarded pushed me over the brink. With strength I didn't know I possessed, I grabbed Sierra's skinny shoulders and slammed her against the bathroom tiles. She yelped loudly. Up close, I could see a sliver of fear behind the disdain in her eyes. You listen to me, you toxic leech, I hissed into her face. Nothing will stop me from destroying you and Derek for what you've done. I pressed my forearm harder across her collarbone as she squirmed. Now for the last time, get the hell out! I stepped back, adrenaline and rage coursing through me as Sierra fled from the room. The war was on. It's done. The eviction notice has been served, Alex said, setting a folder thick with legal documents on the cafe table. I let out a long sigh, feeling the knot in my chest loosen slightly. After Derek and Sierra's cruelty reached new heights yesterday, I'd barely slept a wink. Now the first step of my vengeance was officially in motion. Thank you, Alex, I said, squeezing his hand gratefully. I couldn't have faced those monsters without you by my side. My son nodded. I still can't believe Derek refused to answer my calls last night. He knows Sierra crossed the line, but he's so deep under her spell. Disgust dripped from Alex's voice. She's completely corrupted him, I agreed bitterly. I just pray we can bring Derek back to his senses someday. I shook my head before taking a long draught of coffee. But first, we make them suffer. Determination flashed in Alex's eyes. You said Sierra physically tormented you. We could report them for elder abuse. Not enough, I said coolly. After years pandering to those parasites' wishes, I wanted to hit them where it truly hurt, their beloved social status. An idea began percolating. We need to turn their fancy social circles against them, I continued. Publicly drag their reputations through the mud. Share evidence of their lies for all to see. Alex frowned uncertainly. I don't know, Mom. A reputation attack could really devastate them. I leaned forward. Exactly. Sierra and Derek care about nothing except money and admiration from their vapid country club world. So we rip that all away by exposing them. My hands trembled slightly as I recalled Sierra's mocking face. After what she did to me, what they did, they deserve no mercy. I watched Alex wrestle with his conscience before resolve hardened his expression. Okay, he agreed. Where do we start? Over the next hour, fueled by caffeine and adrenaline, Alex and I outlined our retaliation scheme. Step 1 involved anonymously sending Derek's workplace the proof of his financial deception, putting his lucrative job at risk. Meanwhile, I would subtly inform Sierra's gossip-hungry socialite friends about her treatment of me, seeding rumors that would spread rapidly. By the time Derek lost his job, Sierra's reputation would also be shredded by scandal among their social circle. Their lives here would be untenable. Checkmate. As we parted ways, Alex pulled me in for a fierce hug. "It'll be okay, Mom," he said gently. "We've got this nightmare handled now." Pride and optimism swelled within me then. My son was right. The dawn had arrived to banish these parasites for good. Now we would make Derek and Sierra sorry they ever darkened our door. Over the next week, Alex and I vigilantly executed our plot as Derek and Sierra scrambled to fight the eviction notice. Phase 1 went smoothly. Alex mailed reams of incriminating evidence against Derek to his bosses. Meanwhile, fueled with self-righteous fury, I dropped whispered gossip bombs among Sierra's acquaintances at social events I knew they'd attend. By the time they left each venue, tongues would already be wagging with scandal about Sierra's cruelty against a helpless old woman. Soon enough, Alex and I noted whispers dying down awkwardly as Sierra entered rooms. Eyes that were once warm with envy now glared with contempt. I even witnessed one ringleader of Sierra's clique publicly snub her at a ladies' luncheon. Watching Derek and Sierra's glittering facade slowly crack bolstered my energy. The parasites were getting a taste of long-overdue karma, and my vengeance hungered for more. Soon, the fatal blow would strike. Our scheme was unfolding perfectly. This was it. Phase 2 of my master vengeance plan went into motion today, destroying Derek's career and reputation just as he and his wicked wife have destroyed me these past bitter years. My hands trembled slightly as I carried the anonymous package into the mailroom of Derek's prestigious finance firm. Thanks to Alex's inside intel, I knew exactly when new mail deliveries arrived to ensure my parcel would land directly on the CEO's desk today. The thick manila envelope contained hard evidence of Derek's deceit. Phony promotion paperwork, emails showing him misusing company funds for personal gain. Once exposed to the light, Derek's house of lies would come crashing down spectacularly. After handing the sealed fate to the clerk, I retreated outside to meet Alex around the corner. As soon as I slid into the passenger seat, questions spilled from my son's mouth. "It's done? They'll definitely see it?" His eyes shone with anticipation. My lips curved into a smile. Without a doubt. I made sure to address it directly to the CEO and partners. I pictured my parasitic son squirming under his boss's scrutiny and felt a flare of dark satisfaction. "Bullseye shot, Mom. Nice work," Alex grinned and reached over for a high five. As our palms slapped in camaraderie, I let out a breath I'd been holding for years since Sierra first darkened my door as Derek's vapid arm candy. Today marked the beginning of her downfall as well, and freedom for Alex and me. My phone buzzed with an update from my insider society lady, Magda. She confirmed catching Sierra drunk and belligerent at a country club luncheon today, throwing a spectacular tantrum for all the gossipy patrons to see when confronted about her treatment of me. I smirked, envisioning the scandalized faces of Seattle's most influential wives and matriarchs aghast at her audacity. Sierra's social death was all but guaranteed now. Alex and I decided to swing by a cafe near Derek's office to lay low for a few hours, not wanting to arouse suspicion by returning home too quickly. We passed the time eagerly dissecting potential scenarios, Derek being escorted out by security, Sierra's designer gal pals icing her out forever, their lavish leased cars repossessed within the month. I halfway listened as Alex prattled on about his new girlfriend and her plans to take me on a scenic mountain hiking trip. My gaze remained fixed out the window facing Derek's building, hungry for signs of implosion. Finally, just as the cafe owner flipped the open sign to closed, it happened. Derek emerged at a jog through the lobby's revolving doors. Tie loose, hair disheveled, face pale as a corpse. My breath caught as he frantically scanned the dark street before booking it towards his BMW. "Mom, look!" Alex's whispered voice barely penetrated my fixation. We both instinctively sunk lower in our seats as Derek's car roared out of the underground parking ramp and streaked by in the night. My hands, though liver-spotted with age, clenched into fists of unsated vengeance. Seeing Derek utterly unraveled after years of his soul-crushing deception tasted sweet, but like a perfectly seared steak, I hungered to fully savor the meal I'd cooked up. "One parasite down," I muttered under my breath. Alex touched my shoulder, solidarity passing between us. Now time to squash the queen bee. 1 week after Derek lost his executive job under the black cloud of scandal, Alex and I drank tea on my back patio, waiting for the other parasite shoe to drop. "Sierra missed her nail appointment yesterday," Alex said, "and salon gossip confirmed none of her circle invited her on Carol's annual Aspen trip this year." I nodded, blowing gently on my steaming cup. Bit by bit, Sierra's social bonds unraveled as my gossip campaign exposed her cruel ways. With Derek also in the doghouse, her golden perch atop Seattle's who's who started crumbling quickly. Now we anticipated the fatal blows to drive our revenge home. Right on cue, the patio door suddenly banged open. Sierra stomped out, mascara streaking her contorted face. I set my cup down, steeling my expression into cool indifference despite Sierra's histrionics. "Help me. I think my brakes were tampered with." She collapsed into the wicker chair opposite me, burying her face in manicured hands. I arched an eyebrow. Car issues were just the newest calamity plaguing her in recent weeks. "Excellent. What makes you think that?" I asked lightly, keeping my tone free of genuine concern. Alex swiveled to monitor Sierra, a perfect accomplice keeping up normal appearances. Sierra lifted her head, hazel eyes burning with fury despite the smudged makeup. "This is all your fault. Ever since your stupid eviction scheme, my life has fallen apart." She swept out a hand dramatically. "My friends shun me. Derek can't find work. Now potentially deadly car attacks. I know you're targeting me." I took a slow, leisurely sip of tea before responding calmly. "You've always been overly dramatic, Sierra. Nonetheless, I wish you and Derek nothing but the best moving forward." "Oh, cut the fake sweetness, you hag." She snatched up an empty planter pot, and for a moment I thought she might try to attack me again. Instead, she hurled it against the cedar fence with a frustrated shriek. I didn't flinch as terracotta shards exploded across the pavers at my feet. "I'd appreciate you not destroying my patio furnishings." Sierra's chest heaved rapidly, wet eyes still flashing daggers at me. But despite the aggressive posturing, her face had a hollow, worn appearance now. The queen bee's protective social armor lay in tatters, exposing her pettiness nakedly for all to see. My schemes had achieved exactly that, and I watched her crack and crumble with growing satisfaction. Just then, Alex's phone buzzed loudly in the tense silence. His eyes blew wide at the caller ID image, and he angled the screen for me to see. A glamorous woman wrapped around a shirtless, muscular man. Clearly not Derek. Bold text across the image read, "Cheating Sierra strikes again." My lips curled triumphantly. Our insider spies had captured Sierra's latest infidelity bombshell, another crushing blow I'd orchestrated to her status. Sierra lunged, but Alex yanked the phone out of reach. "That's photoshopped. I never cheated." She attempted a breezy laugh, but it came out shrill and frantic. "Right, Evelyn? Tell him that's fake." I held Sierra's panicked gaze, watching her shredded dignity burn away, my vengeance nearly complete. Finally, I drew myself up slowly. "I think it's time for you two parasites to truly leave my home." My voice rang with quiet authority. Sierra gaped, speechless. As she stormed away and surrendered defeat, Alex and I toasted over fresh tea. The parasites were banished for good. I had reclaimed my power at last. I awoke to golden rays of dawn streaming through my bedroom windows, the first morning in years where hope instead of dread propelled me out of bed. After banishing Derek and Sierra from my life forever yesterday, joyful relief now flooded my veins. I stretched slowly, for once not bothered by my creaky joints or chronic back pain. Healing was finally possible with those emotional vampires gone. I found Alex humming cheerily over a sizzling skillet when I drifted downstairs an hour later. "Morning, Mom? Celebratory cheese omelets?" He smiled brightly. My heart warmed at his infectious mood. With the parasites gone, Alex was positively thriving, his caring spirit unburdened. Over fluffy eggs and strong coffee, we chatted lightly about starting house repairs. Alex insisted on repainting Sierra's gaudy glam room gray to cleanse her tacky energy. As he rambled excitedly about redecorating visions, emotion suddenly clogged my throat. After years battling trauma alone, now I had my loyal son beside me, ready to heal wounds and reconnect. I squeezed Alex's hand tightly across the counter. "Thank you," I whispered, "for fighting with me. I love you so much." Alex squeezed back firmly. "We did this together. I'm just grateful to have my strong mom back." He smiled softly. "Those parasites will never hurt our family again." Over the next few weeks, Alex made good on his home improvement promises while I regained vigor and mobility. Soon colorful gardens sprung up outside, while inside, cherished antique furniture emerged from basement storage back into their rightful places. Alex also urged me to share our story with others experiencing elder exploitation. "What you did was so brave, facing abusive family members," he insisted. "Your experience could help other seniors speak up, too." Weeks later at my first community center meeting, apprehension and stage fright struck me momentarily mute. But seeing the attendees' encouraging faces, I found my voice. And soon my speech about overcoming parasitic relationships through courage and strategy planning roused a standing ovation. In the whirlwind months that followed between decor upgrades with Alex and counseling other seniors, I hardly had time to ponder Derek and Sierra's fate since their raging departure. Only vague rumors circulated among my society circles of their disgrace. So I was surprised when Alex poked his head into the living room one autumn afternoon as I reviewed brochures for an elder justice conference. "Mom, there's a woman outside asking to see you," he said carefully. My eyebrow quirked up. I rarely had unannounced visitors anymore. Before I could respond, Alex stepped back to reveal Sierra hovering behind him sheepishly. I slowly rose to my feet. Even with uncomfortably bleached hair and pounds thinner, I immediately recognized the haughty tilt of Sierra's chin. But her flashy designer clothes had been replaced by a simple turtleneck and jeans. Oddly, her hazel eyes lacked their usual combative scorn as well. I crossed my arms warily. "May I help you?"
The experience involved a little heart-to-heart I had with my father when he heard about me getting engaged. He took me to one side and with a worried expression on his face asked, "Do you really know what you're doing marrying Stephen?" He confirmed my crush on Stephen, but also said that he wasn't sure if it was a great relationship for me. Confused, I questioned why he felt that way. My father explained that although Stephen was affectionate and respectful, he sensed something off about him and his mother that he couldn't quite explain, attributing it to a father's instinct. Despite my protests, my father shared his observations that Stephen often bragged about my wealth to his friends, portraying me as a trophy rather than a partner. He was worried that Stephen's affection was not genuine. At that time, I brushed off my father's concerns, blinded by love and the desire to cling to a relationship that I believed would sustain me. Especially after losing my mother 3 years prior and with my father's health declining. My father had built his wealth through savvy investments and hard work, setting a comfortable life for us. I, too, was making a decent living from my job. In contrast, Stephen and his mother Megan came from a modest background and often expressed their dissatisfaction with not having enough. Even after moving into my house post-marriage, they remained unhappy, always yearning for more luxurious and expensive lifestyles. Looking back, I realized that perhaps my father saw what I couldn't see at the time. I was a young woman in love, trying to hold on to something that felt like it would give me a reason to keep going despite the grief and loneliness I felt. Stephen and Megan, while they became my new family, perhaps weren't the sanctuary I hoped they would be. I vividly recall the moment when Stephen and his mother Megan lamented the size of my small townhouse compared to my father's mansion. "It's such a shame," they said, "that with your dad living in such a grand place, you ended up buying this tiny house." I explained that despite my father's wealth, I was just a regular office worker with a modest income, and even buying this house was a stretch for me, made possible only with my dad's help on the down payment. Megan, ever materialistic, suggested that my father should have bought me a better place, hinting that surely something must have been left for me by my mother when she passed away suddenly without a will. I tried to set the record straight. Whatever my mother had left was rightfully my father's, and I was content with what I had, not feeling entitled to more. Stephen then made a bold proposal that my father should swap houses with us since he was living alone and didn't need the space, to which Megan eagerly agreed. I was appalled and firmly refused, emphasizing that the house was my father's and he deserved to live there comfortably for the rest of his days. Their response was cold and calculating, pointing out that since my father was ill, they could wait a few years, and eventually everything would be mine to inherit. Their unabashed planning for my future inheritance was deeply disturbing, worsened by their frequent suggestions that I ask my father for more money despite us not being in financial distress. They were clearly fixated on living a millionaire lifestyle without the means. The real crisis unfolded after my father passed away from cancer. I was heartbroken, yet received minimal support from Stephen or Megan, who seemed only interested in when they could hear the will. They even refused to attend my father's funeral, claiming he meant nothing to them. This left me heartbroken and furious. Reflecting on those times, my father's earlier warnings echoed in my mind, stirring doubts about Stephen and Megan's true intentions. Their behavior had become increasingly hard to overlook, and I began to seriously question the motives behind their actions in our relationship. I couldn't shake the feeling that Stephen and Megan were mainly interested in my inheritance. Their behavior became especially clear during the will reading. Outraged at being excluded, Stephen demanded, "Why the hell can't we be at the reading of the will? I'm his son-in-law after all." Megan chimed in, insisting, "It's absurd that we, as a family, were not present to know what Lawrence had left behind, especially since her son should have had some claim." The lawyer's response was blunt. "Your son isn't mentioned in the will, Megan, so he cannot attend the reading." I couldn't help but confront them about their obsession with the inheritance, especially since they hadn't even bothered to attend the funeral. It seemed to me that my father was only considered family when there was money involved. Their behavior escalated after the will reading. I returned home to face their incessant questions. Despite still mourning my father, they offered no comfort or sympathy, only probing about the details of the inheritance. "So how much did you inherit from your parents? They must have left you a lot, right?" Megan asked eagerly. I replied more to end their speculation than anything. "Actually, I didn't receive any money. My parents' wealth wasn't left to me." This revelation stunned them. "You got nothing, but your parents were wealthy. They must have left you something. Are you sure you're not hiding it from us?" Stephen accused. I reassured them, "There's no money. You're welcome to check my bank statement soon, but you won't find any changes." As for the rest of their assets, they decided to donate what was left to charity. Their frustration was palpable, and Megan was quick to suggest that I contest the will. "That's ridiculous. You need to fight for your inheritance," she insisted. But I was firm in my response. There's nothing to fight for. My parents decided to give their remaining assets to charity. I respect their choice. Stephen and Megan seemed infuriated by my lack of interest in pursuing a fortune that no longer existed. I was baffled by their anger and persistent disbelief, but it only confirmed my suspicions about their true motivations. I was on the verge of revealing everything, but a nagging doubt held me back. I couldn't shake the feeling that Stephen and his mother, Megan, were scheming behind my back. As they continued to press me for details about the inheritance, I stood my ground firmly, repeating that I hadn't received any money, and even suggested I could show them my bank account to prove it. A month went by, and Stephen's behavior changed dramatically. He became distant and agitated, frequently checking my bank account and badgering me about the inheritance. It became clear to me what his true motivations might be. Finally, I had enough and decided to confront the situation head-on. I showed them my bank statements, confirming that no inheritance had come my way. See, I wasn't lying. There's no secret inheritance, I asserted, hoping this would settle the matter. However, their reaction was shocking. Stephen exploded, all our years of effort wasted. So your parents weren't that rich, and you didn't even get a dime. This is unbelievable. His disappointment was palpable, and then he said something that broke me. I stayed in this marriage for nothing. I married you for nothing. It was all a waste. His words cut deep. What do you mean, Stephen? Why would you say that? I asked, my heart sinking. Megan scoffed. Who would marry you without considering the money? My son married you expecting we could bank on your inheritance. Now we see, you got nothing. I can't believe I wasted 6 years on a useless girl like you. Stephen could have done so much better. Hearing them speak so callously confirmed my worst fears. It was clear now that Stephen had married me for money. My parents had been right about him and his mother. They were nothing but gold diggers. As much as it hurt, what came next was even more crushing. Megan turned to Stephen with a cold, calculating look. What's done is done, Stephen. But now it's time for you to leave her. There's no reason to stay anymore. You'll have time to find a new rich wife next time, one who has money. Her words were like a knife. Are you kidding me, Megan? You're pushing Stephen to divorce me over money. I asked, my voice trembling. Stephen's silence spoke volumes. It was a defining moment for me. The facade had crumbled, revealing the stark, ugly truth of their intentions. I was heartbroken, but I knew I needed to find the strength to move on from this betrayal. Of course, Stephen's response was chillingly pragmatic. I married you because I thought it would secure a comfortable life for me and my mom. We've always struggled financially. I didn't go to college and had no real means to earn much. I thought marrying you would change that, assuming your parents would leave you a substantial inheritance that you would share with us. His blunt admission that he had feigned love to secure financial stability stunned me. He continued, it was the only way I thought I could give my mom the life she deserved. But now, seeing that there's no inheritance, it seems my efforts were pointless. Mom's right. I need to look forward and keep searching. His words, delivered so casually, shook me deeply as he and Megan vented their frustration. I found myself tuning out, overwhelmed by the enormity of their deceit, their lack of empathy, and Stephen's sudden shift in attitude. It was both deeply upsetting and infuriating. I was so angry I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I restrained myself. Instead, I responded calmly, Okay then, Stephen. If a divorce is what you want, then that's what you'll get. I've never been one to deny your requests, I continued. Consider this a final favor, Megan, I added firmly. Don't think this means you can take alimony from my son. We'll fight you tooth and nail before you see a cent of that, Megan interjected sharply. I don't have much money at the moment, I replied calmly. So here's what I propose. A mutual divorce with no division of assets or alimony. You don't have much, and neither do I right now. If you forgo alimony, I'll agree to sign and not claim anything further from you. Stephen and I then discussed the details of our divorce more pragmatically. The conversation was devoid of any emotional connection. It was purely transactional, reflecting the stark reality of our relationship's dissolution. As we negotiated the terms, I could tell Megan and Stephen were pleased that I wasn't creating any drama over the process. Perhaps they were surprised by my composed demeanor, not knowing that each day I was privately unraveling. On my way to work, tears streamed down my face, and I often spend hours crying alone in my car before and after work. Neither Stephen nor Megan noticed my puffy eyes or questioned why my daily routine had suddenly extended. Once Megan realized there was no inheritance in my future, she barely acknowledged my existence, solidifying my resolve to end this marriage swiftly. I made arrangements for Stephen and Megan to move out of my house and into a rented apartment nearby. They settled in quickly, and as the divorce proceedings advanced, Stephen, true to his agreement, did not claim any part of my house. I, in turn, did not seek alimony. To him, it was a straightforward exchange. On the day our divorce was finalized, I decided to take one last step. I visited their rental to return my wedding and engagement rings. Standing at their doorstep, I said, "I just want to return these. This marriage brought nothing but distress into my life, and I prefer not to keep any reminders of it." Megan scoffed, seizing the moment to taunt me. "Are you sure? You might need the money. It's amusing. You once looked down on our poverty, and now look at your situation. My son is being generous by letting you keep the rings. You might need to sell them when your job falls through." Her words stung, but I retorted with a laugh, which seemed to confuse both Megan and Stephen. "Why would I need to sell the rings for money, Megan? You don't need to feel embarrassed for me. We already know my parents left me nothing. They lost it all to poor decisions, leaving their daughter with nothing. Or so you think." My laughter in the face of their cruelty and misunderstanding seemed to unsettle them. I could see a hint of annoyance in Stephen's expression, perhaps embarrassed by his mother's blunt crudeness. As I turned to leave, their baffled faces were a clear sign they still hadn't grasped the full extent of my independence and resilience. I walked away knowing I was finally free from their toxicity, ready to rebuild my life on my terms. Stephen was visibly puzzled by my laughter, and Megan demanded, "Why the hell are you laughing? Did I say something funny?" Her disbelief only fueled my amusement. "It's truly hilarious how you think I'm destitute, Megan, and even more amusing that you believe my parents squandered their entire fortune." Megan snapped back, convinced of her narrative. "Of course you're destitute. Your parents didn't leave you a penny. They surely ruined your life by not leaving you an inheritance." I couldn't help but smirk at her misunderstanding. "I never said I didn't receive an inheritance, Megan. I simply told you that I didn't get any money. Indeed, my parents did leave me quite the inheritance." Confusion clouded her face. "What the hell does that mean? You have an inheritance?" I nodded, relishing the moment. "My parents saw right through you and Stephen as the gold diggers you are, so they included a secret clause in their will. They left me no money, but instead, I inherited this entire neighborhood." Megan's shock was palpable. "You own this neighborhood. How is that possible? We would have known about your inheritance. We even signed our lease with an estate manager who didn't mention the owner's name." My parents wanted me to wait for a year before claiming my inheritance, I continued. "They wanted me to test you and see if you were with me for money or love. You failed that test, and now you won't receive anything from me." The estate manager was appointed by my parents to manage the property until I could claim it. They were very clever, you know. "That's impossible. I don't believe a word you're saying. You're just embarrassed because you have no money," Megan retorted, disbelief etched across her face. Stephen chimed in, skeptical yet curious. "Oh, really? Is that what you think happened?" His tone was mocking, but there was a hint of doubt. "Well, why don't we just call the landlord and find out from him?" "Go ahead," I encouraged, knowing well what the outcome would be. With a mix of defiance and desperation, Megan and Stephen called their landlord, who was indeed the estate manager. As they listened, their expressions transformed from confident to shocked. The estate manager confirmed everything I had said. After hanging up, their faces were a mix of anger and panic. "You lied to us," Megan accused, her voice trembling. "You tricked us into thinking you had nothing." Standing there, watching their realization dawn, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Their obsession with wealth had blinded them to the value of genuine relationships, and now they were reaping the consequences of their greed and deceit. Stephen and Megan stood there dumbfounded as they grappled with the fact that I now owned the entire housing community. "You've kept all this wealth to yourself. You tricked Stephen into divorcing you and made sure he wouldn't claim anything," Megan accused, her voice tinged with desperation and betrayal. I couldn't help but laugh at their attempt to twist the narrative. "It's quite ironic that you're calling me the trickster," I responded, the irony of their accusation not lost on me. "Stephen, you married me under pretenses, claiming love where there was none. Megan, you coached him into this and even pushed for the divorce, thinking there'd be no financial loss for you. If anyone's the scammer here, it's both of you." The truth was simple. They had inquired about my financial gains from the inheritance, and I answered honestly. This was all a big misunderstanding. But what's done is done. It's curious, though, how you're suddenly interested in rekindling things now that you know about my inheritance. And Stephen, aren't you already courting another wealthy woman? Don't worry, I'll make sure she knows exactly who you are. As they realized the severity of their situation, Stephen and Megan began to plead. Stephen even dared to ask me not to interfere with his new relationship if I wasn't willing to give him a second chance. My response was blunt: "Get lost." Additionally, I informed them that they would be evicted once the property transfer was finalized. Over the following weeks, they repeatedly showed up at my doorstep, begging for forgiveness. Their desperation was palpable, especially since they already had an eviction on their record, which would make finding a new place difficult. The only reason they were still on my property was that I had instructed the estate manager to allow it temporarily. Taking action, I reached out to Stephen's new interest and told her everything. She was appalled by their actions and ended things with him immediately, even showing me their exchange of texts as proof of the breakup. After this debacle, when Stephen and Megan resorted to verbally attacking me, I had no choice but to call the police. Their actions had crossed all boundaries of decency, confirming that my decision to distance myself from them was not just right but necessary. Once the inheritance was officially transferred into my name, I didn't hesitate to evict Stephen and Megan from the property. They seemed shocked that I followed through with my threat, despite their initial disbelief. They did attempt to come back onto my property, prompting me to call the police. The officers gave them a stern warning, and I proceeded to file for a restraining order to ensure they would stay away. Word of our altercation quickly spread throughout the town, and soon enough, everyone knew about their deceitful behavior. As a result, they found themselves socially ostracized, which forced them to leave the city and try to start fresh elsewhere. Meanwhile, I've been relishing my newfound financial independence, liberated from the clutches of gold-digging leeches. I'm now free to enjoy my life and the wealth my parents wisely left me, ensuring it would benefit someone who truly appreciated their legacy. I'm Sarah. In addition to working in an office as a worker in my late 30s, I assist at my family's liquor store throughout the weekdays till 6 p.m. I assist with the family liquor store's accounting and management after work at the office. In the old days, the liquor store was a thriving enterprise, supplying alcohol to pubs, sushi restaurants, hotel banquet halls, and other establishments. We essentially had a monopoly because there were no other booze businesses in our neighborhood. However, in recent years, with regulations limiting the hours when alcohol can be served, the amount of alcohol consumption has decreased drastically. Not only were there fewer banquets, but pubs even stopped serving alcohol in the evening. Of course, this has brought serious financial difficulties to our family business. As the eldest daughter and my sister Noah already married, I found myself in charge of the struggling family liquor store. Moreover, my parents were terrible at managing the finances. On top of an existing debt, they continued their old-fashioned way of doing business when the store started to struggle, and without realizing it, the debt inflated massively, bringing us on the brink of bankruptcy. However, due to my father's determination not to close the store, I decided to move back home 2 years ago. Still, the income from the liquor store alone wouldn't be enough to pay off the debts, so I decided to continue my day job and help out at the store in the evenings. When I returned home after work on weekdays, my father greets me in the store, the shutters open, holding his favorite beer. "Ah, finally, you're back." "Dad, are you drinking again?" "These bottles aren't selling. I'm just drinking them." My father, having consumed quite a bit of alcohol, smells strongly of it, and his speech is slurred. "Dad, that's enough. Don't drink the merchandise." When I tell him that, he responds loudly, "Don't lecture me, the daughter who can't even get married." Saying so, he went inside the house. I cleaned up the cluttered store and dove into the books for the day. Dinner doesn't happen until after 9 p.m., when I finish up the store's closing tasks for the day. I may be used to it, but I still get hungry. Since my parents have already gone to bed, I head to the kitchen to make instant ramen and then start preparing breakfast for the next morning. My mom prefers bread for breakfast, and my dad likes rice, so every day I prepare both a Western and Japanese meal. This is how my day ends. On the weekends, when I finally get a day off, I set my alarm for 10 a.m. hoping to sleep in, but my mother wakes me up at 8 a.m. "Hey, heat up your father's miso soup quickly." "Why?" "You can do that, Mom." I refuse. "Why should I have to do the housework when you're here?" "Now get up." My mother seems to be mistaking me for a housemaid. True, I've always been meticulous and liked cooking and cleaning, so I naturally took on the housework. But ever since I was in high school, my mother, who had come to rely heavily on me, dumped everything from taking care of my sister to housework on me. Tired of this situation, as soon as I graduated from high school, I got a job and started the work I do now. In my teens, the work was very difficult, and there were many times I wanted to give up. But each time my seniors at work helped me, and I managed to keep going. Unable to enjoy a leisurely morning, I woke up, finished the housework, and went straight to work at the liquor store. I began shouldering the family debt when the business started to struggle, a total of $3 million a year. Frankly, it's not an easy sum to manage. I lived frugally to repay the debt, using only $1 cosmetics from the dollar store and packing homemade lunches. I endured the cold as long as I could to save on heating bills. In a bid to pull us out of this situation, I took it upon myself to help rebuild our family business. I believed that just supplying alcohol to local businesses wasn't going to cut it. I suggested to my dad that we could leverage the internet, but he was resistant, saying, "Our old way is the best way. I'm not the problem. The world is." While I was still thinking about the business, my mom would nudge me with those house chores. "Is lunch ready yet? Did you hang the laundry?" Juggling household tasks didn't leave me much time to devise and execute a plan to revitalize the business, leaving me always a step behind. But after much effort, I managed to start online sales using the internet, selling primarily rare alcohol available at our store. With restrictions making it hard for people to move about freely, this treasure hunt-like method of online sales was a hit, and our business started to pick up. Meanwhile, as our store's name gained visibility online, foot traffic also increased. My free time shrunk even more. Although it was tough having no time to myself, I kept pushing, thinking it was all to reduce my parents' debt. Things were finally looking up, and my parents were becoming self-sufficient. Around that time, I was told, Noah's got a baby on the way. Congratulations! That's great, your first grandchild. I beamed with joy, but my mom's face stiffened. That's why you have to leave this house. What? I was unable to comprehend what she was saying. As I gazed at my mom in confusion, my dad, who had been listening to our conversation over a drink, added, Noah and his wife are going to live here. Pack your stuff and get out. But I came back to this house for the two of you. My pleas fell on deaf ears. My sister had always been a free spirit, never helped around the house, and despite wanting to be a preschool teacher and leaving for college, she dropped out within a few months because she got bored. Even after that, she lived off our parents' financial support. That continued even after she got married. Her husband didn't have a steady job either, so they lived on her parents' money and their part-time job income. Despite this, they seemed to be living comfortably, going on trips here and there. I had a feeling about this, but chose to turn a blind eye. Suddenly being told to leave the house, I was too busy to even find a new place. I asked my parents to give me at least 2 months, and I began to search for a new home, putting the liquor store work on the back burner. During one of these days, my dad called my workplace. Sarah, what the hell are you doing? The store is too busy. Come home right now. No, I'm working now. Ask Noah. Frustrated with my father trying to dump his work on me after telling me to leave, I hung up the phone. A few minutes later, Sarah, your father's on the phone again. Really? Again, I am so sorry for the trouble. As I answered the phone, my father started repeating the same things from earlier, eventually shouting on the other end of the line, Sarah, you can leave early today if you want. My boss offered. I still had work to do, but didn't want to cause further disturbance at the office because of my father's incessant calls, so I decided to leave early that day. Arriving at our family liquor store, my father was there drinking, even though we were still open for business. What? Drinking again instead of working? I was furious. When I confronted him about his drinking, he rambled on, saying, drinking is vital to understanding the taste of our products. You just focus on your work. Unable to see an end to the conversation with my inebriated father, I silently started the family business. Tasks. From then on, I juggled my work, household chores, house hunting, and the liquor store duties, leading an unimaginably hectic life. One day, due to extreme stress, I fainted at work and woke up in a hospital bed. My colleague Jason, who had accompanied me, explained that I had collapsed, hitting my head on the corner of my desk. Touching my head gently, I could feel the bandages wrapped around it. Give us a scare. How are you feeling now? Better. Tears welled up in my eyes at his kindness. Over the past few years, people have rarely shown me kindness. At home, despite the work I did at the liquor store and the house chores, no one ever appreciates me. Being constantly manipulated by my alcoholic father and selfish mother had pushed me to my limit. Seeing me in this state, Jason said, "You've worked really hard, but soon you won't have to worry about the house, right? Let's take it easy from now on." I expressed my gratitude to Jason, who had shown me such empathy. That's right, I will be moving out soon. The thought gave me the strength to endure a little longer. Finally, I found a house and started preparing to move out. Even then, my parents nagged me to clean every nook and cranny of the house since my younger sister and her husband would be moving in. But by now, I was determined not to be the obedient daughter anymore. "Why don't you sort it out yourself? I have nothing to do with it anymore," when I retorted. My parents seemed a bit taken aback. My father replied, "What's with that attitude? It will be a relief to get rid of someone like you." I was fed up with my ungrateful parents who showed no appreciation for everything I had done for them. Once I completed my move, my sister and her husband moved into my parents' house, and I was finally free from their control. During the weekdays, I would work and get home before 8 p.m. On weekends, I could sleep in, go for walks, do some shopping, and finally have some time to myself. I was enjoying every day more than ever before. Then 1 month later, a phone call made me laugh out loud. "What's going on with this month's debt payment?" Suddenly, my mother called in anger. "Wait, a debt? Wasn't that created by you guys?" Despite all the effort I put into rebuilding the liquor store business and doing all the house chores, who was it that kicked me out for their convenience? I didn't give my mom a chance to respond, and in the background, Noah chimed in, "Please help us out." I had no idea about the debt. I thought the liquor store was doing great, and I could lead an easy life if I came back home. And she continued pleading like that. But of course, life was not going to be that easy. All I could do was laugh at my self-centered family, which now included my sister and her husband. 4 adults should be able to figure out money, right? When I said that, I could hear my mom and Noah arguing on the other end of the phone. They were hurling insults, blaming each other for their inaction, just tearing each other down. The argument heated up to the point where they seemed to forget I was on the phone. This went on for several minutes. Listening to their conversation, I felt very disappointed in my family. At the same time, my desire to distance myself from them grew even stronger. My dad, who drank all the time and didn't want to work, my mom, who didn't want to do household chores, Noah, who didn't want to work and wanted to live off her parents, and Noah's husband, who also didn't want to work. There was no way that a liquor store income could cover the nearly $1,000 in monthly debt payments and the living expenses for 4 adults with such a mentality. Fed up, I said, "I don't want to be involved anymore. Oh, by the way, I'm getting married soon. I plan on moving overseas in a few months, so don't rely on me anymore." When I told them that, my mom just blurted out things like, "What do you mean overseas? You must have a lot of money. Don't go overseas. Come back home." And I was so fed up with her that I hung up. They kept calling back, but I didn't answer any more calls from my family. The next day, I changed my cell phone number, and I asked my workplace not to connect any calls to me. While I was in America, I was able to distance myself from my family. And with the help of the people around me, several months later, just before leaving America, I heard from a relative that the online liquor store business that I built was also in trouble because everyone was doing their work haphazardly. Shipments were delayed, wrong products were delivered, and they were swept with customer complaints. Bad management spread by word of mouth, damaging the reputation and hurting sales. In parallel, the fact that my dad was drunk every day became a topic of conversation, and the store was labeled as a place with a drunkard, which slowed customer traffic. The sales plummeted, and the monthly losses were back. The family liquor store, which had recovered enough to make a living, was forced to close down. And the 4 people who had lost their credibility couldn't even get a job in the vicinity of their home. They lost their means to make money, couldn't repay their debts, and had to leave the store and house they had pledged as collateral. After losing their refuge, the family of 4 scrambled desperately to get in touch with me. Yet, thanks to the support of my extended family, who became my allies and kept my location secret, I was able to avoid contact with them. Despite the fact that No's wife is pregnant and nearing her due date, all 4 adults remained unemployed. Their daily quarrels, discussions about how to survive, and refusal to take initiative for employment eventually led to petty squabbles and blame games. In the meantime, I got married to Jason, the coworker who had accompanied me to the hospital when I fell ill. We had always been close, but the incident brought us even closer. At that time, we were both offered positions at our company's overseas branch. This string of coincidences led to our relationship and subsequent decision to marry. Since I had no time for myself while rebuilding my parents' house, I now want to cherish my time with my husband and put effort into both our work and home life. My family took for granted the sacrifices I made for them over the years. They didn't bother to put in any effort and left everything to others. Their only concern was their own benefit. The fate of such people who never bothered to make an effort was predictable. I am thankful to the people who rescued me. I want to use my family as a negative example and aim to lead a happy life, considering not only my interests, but also those of others. As a husband, I am entitled to the entire inheritance. In a marriage, it's my inalienable right. I might purchase a mansion. The mother-in-law and husband have a severe financial obsession. They even attempt to take credit for my father's wealth, so it's not just me. Why should I give these folks the fortune my father amassed? I'll never be able to forgive them or give in to their demands. My name is Mia. I'm a 44-year-old in my 20th year of marriage. I juggle housework and my job, living a busy life. My husband, John, 2 years my senior at 46, works at a supermarket near the station. We met when I was a university student and working part-time at the supermarket where he worked. We started dating somewhat casually and got married when I was 24. We live with our son, Bill, who just started university this spring. I have a fulfilling job that keeps me busy, but there's one thing that troubles me. It's my husband's reckless spending. It's our right to spend our earned money however we want, but he's relentless in asking for more when it runs out. It's worse when all 3 of us are together. Mia, I ran out of pocket money for this month, so put about $200 in my wallet. He demands additional pocket money every month. Again, it shouldn't be that little. What are you spending it all on? Shut up. A man has various social obligations. My husband raises his voice immediately if I show the slightest resistance. It's all because you insisted on sending Bill to college in the first place. That's right, Mia. It's enough to just graduate high school like John. What are you thinking? You don't want Bill to end up like John because you graduated from college yourself. The mother-in-law corners me with her sarcasm. That's because Bill has a goal to become a lawyer. You agreed to it too, didn't you? I didn't think it would cost so much money. Then the father-in-law says, Mia, you could just have your father pay for all of it. He lives in such a big house. He wouldn't hesitate to spend on his dear grandson's college fees. I thought, isn't he your dear grandson too? But I kept quiet, knowing it was pointless to argue. It's always like this when it comes to money. I'm really glad Bill wasn't home at this time. He doesn't think highly of his grandparents either. He makes sure to go out whenever he knows they're coming. It's always the same. My husband and his parents know my father runs a company and lives in a large house, so they try to get money from me. Then one day, while preparing dinner, Bill told me something shocking. Mom, Dad's cheating. I saw him. He was walking into a hotel arm in arm with a woman. I never thought I would hear such a report from my son. I felt more disgusted than angry. realizing I probably didn't love him anymore. Just get a divorce, Mom. I can work part-time. It's very reassuring to know my son feels the same way. Thank you, Bill, but I'll talk to your father first. You don't have to worry about anything if we do get divorced. I'm working too. On the night I thought about confronting him about this, suddenly, my husband came home with his parents. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, what brings you here all of a sudden? Then the husband and his parents barged into the living room. I thought I'd do something nice for my parents, like taking them on a trip to Hawaii. It's a bit much, but could you prepare about $5,000? Again, a demand for money, and this time a large amount. The in-laws were grinning at me. Where would I get that kind of money? If you don't have it, ask your father. It's unfair that your parents live in a big house, and we're in a rental apartment. He came up with some nonsensical argument. I was fed up and said, speaking of which, you're cheating, aren't you? My husband and his parents froze. I thought it would be better to have them hear it too, so I decided to confront him as planned. I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I cheat? Do you have any proof? He was clearly flustered. Someone saw you entering a hotel looking cozy with another woman. Anyone could say that. Bring this person who saw it, he demanded. I hesitated, not wanting my anger to be directed at Bill. Mia, even if that's true, forgive a cheat or two. It's normal for men. You're his wife. You don't need to make a fuss. I wasn't making a fuss, and I couldn't believe my mother-in-law, a woman herself, was condoning cheating. More importantly, hurry up with the money for the Hawaii trip. Yeah, we've already made the reservations, added the father-in-law. That's right, Mia, I'm counting on you. My husband always tries to change the subject when things don't go his way. I couldn't stand these people anymore. We're getting a divorce, I said calmly. What are you talking about? Don't decide that on your own. If you really want a divorce, I'll take your parents' mansion as property division. While we were arguing, my cell phone rang. It was from my uncle. He's my father's brother with whom I often drink together. Is that you, Mia? Your father suddenly lost consciousness and collapsed. He's been taken to the hospital by ambulance. I don't know his condition yet, but can you come quickly? I answered without hesitation. I explained the situation to my husband and his parents and hurried to the hospital. Uncle, how's Dad? For now, he's asleep. He's not in immediate danger, but his condition isn't great. I was somewhat relieved, fearing the worst. My father is 67, so it wouldn't be strange for something to happen at his age. My father took over the company from my grandfather and worked tirelessly. Now he leads a comfortable life, but it was tough at the beginning, to the point where we almost had to sell the big house my grandfather built. My father worked hard to turn things around. My mother passed away from an illness when I was in middle school, but my father never remarried and raised me by himself. My father is irreplaceable to me. It seemed like he wouldn't wake up today, so after talking with my uncle for a bit, I went home. A few days later, I got a call that my father had woken up, and Bill and I went to visit him. Hey, Mia, Bill, sorry to worry you. He seemed more energetic than I thought, which was a relief. Bill, how's college going? Yeah, college is fun, and I'm studying hard. My father was happy to see Bill, but when Bill stepped out, he said, Mia, if something happens to me, I've left everything about the company to my subordinates, so you don't have to worry. As for the house, I interrupted my father. Dad, don't talk nonsense. Just get better soon. You don't need to worry about anything right now. Yeah, you're right, my father replied with a sad but gentle smile. Afterward, the doctor called me, and it seemed my father's condition was quite serious. Years of overwork had taken their toll. On the way back, I couldn't stop crying. A few days later, my father passed away. That night, I cried until my eyelids swelled. During that time, Bill was my only support, staying by my side the whole time. However, as an only child, there were things I had to do. I started preparing for the funeral, trying to switch gears. The funeral was held at my family home, and many people came to offer condolences. I was reminded of how great my father was. I was too busy with arrangements to grieve. Bill helped as much as he could, even though he didn't understand everything. But my husband just played with his phone, doing nothing. With the help of relatives and my father's colleagues, we managed to get through the funeral. As we were cleaning up, my in-laws hurried over. "Father-in-law, mother-in-law, thank you for today," I greeted them. My mother-in-law said, "Mia, that's not important. What a splendid house." As always, she seemed impressed by the size of my family home. I was speechless due to our vastly different emotions. "Mia, is it true this house would sell for $3 million? Another insensitive question from my father-in-law. I evaded the question. "I don't know. It's not my house." Then my mother-in-law quickly added, "You don't have any siblings, right, Maya?" "Yes, what about it?" I answered sternly. "Oh, nothing, just checking." After that, they left, satisfied with my husband. After all the memorial services were over, I finally had a moment to breathe. While I was putting away the funeral clothes at home, my husband said, "My parents are coming over now." "What? Why are they coming?" I was depressed, thinking it was about money again. "Why are they coming? They're my parents. We'll talk about it when they get here, so wait a little longer." A few minutes later, my in-laws arrived, grinning. They sat on the sofa. Then my husband said, "Hey, Mia, when are we moving? If it's just the three of us in such a big house, it's a waste. My parents will live with us after we move." "What are you talking about all of a sudden?" "We're getting divorced." I was busy with my father's affairs, but my intention to divorce hadn't changed. "Oh, come on. That topic again. I was wrong before, got a bit angry, but I'm not cheating, and I don't want a divorce. Don't joke around." I raised my voice. Now, you two, spouses share everything, so it's not good to monopolize." My father-in-law smirked and said something nonsensical. "A wife should listen to her husband. You're planning to keep all the inheritance for yourself. I'll take it all. It's my right as a husband. If you don't like living together, Mia, you can just give us the inheritance. Maybe we'll buy a mansion." My husband and his parents seemed to think all the inheritance was theirs. What a ridiculous family. My patience had long been exceeded by the audacity of these people, thinking they could inherit the house filled with precious memories of my father and the wealth he had worked so hard to accumulate. I want a room that's spacious and gets plenty of sunlight. I'd prefer a room close to the toilet. There are plenty of toilets in such a big house. Despite my glaring at them in anger, they were discussing these outrageous things. I vowed never to let them have their way. A few days later, I got a call from my uncle. "It's been tough, Mia. You did well. My uncle consoled me. There's something I need to talk to you about. Can you spare some time?" I agreed to meet him that night. "Uncle, what's up?" "What did you want to talk about?" "There's something I absolutely have to tell you, Maya." I was shocked by what he told me. I couldn't believe it had come to this. Then I told him everything about what my husband and in-laws were saying. "What? They said that? Ridiculous people. Unforgivable." My uncle was furious. "I definitely don't want to let them have their way, but it seems okay from what you said." "Uncle, what should I do? How can I make them give up?" "Don't worry about anything, Mia. Leave it all to me. Actually, there's more. Hearing another piece of news from my uncle, I was even more astonished. "Uncle, can we meet again tomorrow? I want Bill to hear this too. He's not a child anymore, and this will be a good learning experience for him." I decided to proceed with a plan with my uncle and Bill. The next day, I took Bill to meet with my uncle to discuss our strategy. For Bill, it was about his father and grandparents. I was worried about how he would truly feel, but it was an unnecessary concern. That's an amazing story. I'm getting excited. I don't care about people who see Mom and Grandpa only as money. "Please help us, Uncle." Bill was excited to participate in the plan, so we decided to move forward with it. The next day, I called my in-laws to our house and spoke with them, my husband and Bill, 6 of us in total, about living in my family home. "Were you serious? Of course, finally you're on board." "I've been waiting immediately." My mother-in-law said, "The sooner the better." Living in such a mansion is like a dream. Then my father-in-law added, "After all, we had to pay the cancellation fee for that trip we talked about before. You have to reimburse us for that." They had made the reservation themselves. I was appalled at their selfishness. Then my mother-in-law said, "We'll make back the money soon enough. Don't rush." I was used to it and knew it wouldn't happen, so I could ignore it. But Bill, unaccustomed to their blatant money grabbing, seemed to be trembling with anger. I patted Bill's shoulder to calm him down. "Okay, let's do it. There's a lot to prepare for the movie. So mother-in-law and father-in-law, please let us know when you've decided on the moving date. John, you move on the same day. Bill and I will go ahead to get the house ready." "I get why you're going, but why, Bill?" G's question was unusually sharp. "Can you prepare meals and do laundry? Bill is still a student. You can manage just for yourself, right?" Yeah, I guess. I managed to deflect with a plausible reason. However, John said, "You can do the tidying in the daytime." Why move ahead? You're not planning to take the best rooms for yourselves, are you? You know that house best. He was resisting over trivial matters. It's fine. That mansion has over 10 rooms, right, Maya? Mother-in-law was in a good mood the entire time, thinking they could live in the mansion, unknowingly pushing the conversation in a direction that worked in my favor. I can't do any tidying up during the day because of work. We'll do it slowly at night and on days off. Don't worry, you can choose your room first. Really? All right, then that's settled. I managed to deflect the situation in my mind. I thought, just wait and see. I'll bring you down to the bottom soon. A month later, the moving day was set, and I received a message from my husband. The day of the final showdown was decided, and I was excited. On that day, my husband and in-laws arrived at my family home with a moving truck. Bill and I were waiting in front of the entrance. As my husband got out of the car, he said, "Hey, kept you waiting, huh? Huh, so this is my house from today. I've really made it." Ignoring my husband's poor joke, I looked at my in-laws who were sparkling with excitement, not realizing they were about to turn back. Then the gate opened, and my uncle came out of the house. My uncle stood there, arms crossed, silent. "Who are you? What are you doing in someone else's house?" My husband apparently didn't even remember my uncle, whom he had met at the funeral. "This is my uncle, my father's brother. You met him at the funeral, remember?" "Oh yeah, that time, my husband awkwardly muttered something like a thanks, but his voice trailed off. "So what are you doing here?" he asked hesitantly, while my in-laws looked puzzled. Then my uncle said, "This isn't my house. Is there a problem with me being in my own house?" My uncle spoke assertively from the beginning, overwhelming my husband and in-laws. "It seems you have a lot of misunderstandings. I've heard the story from Mia. The inheritance from my father was divided between my brother and me. My brother got the company, and I got the house. But I had already left home and was living elsewhere with my family. I didn't plan to move back since my brother was running the company. He continued living here, so he lived here, but the house was in my name. In other words, just because my brother passed away, it doesn't mean the house belongs to Mia. They didn't seem to fully understand my uncle's words. Mia, what's this about? Aren't we moving in here today? My husband asked calmly, as if he had moved past anger. I won't let that happen. You and your family have always been after my father's money, demanding absurd things like living in the mansion or paying for vacations, even after my father passed away. Why should people like you who haven't put in any effort get what my father worked so hard for? You're incredibly brazen. I raised my voice, which took my husband and in-laws aback. But my husband said, "What? How dare you speak to me like that?" Then suddenly, Bill intervened. "Dad, you're cheating, right? I was the one who told Mom." "Bill, what nonsense are you spouting?" My husband couldn't hide his shock at being confronted by his son. "I saw it, Dad." Entering a hotel, looking cozy with a woman. "Are you sure it was me? It's a serious mistake if you're wrong." My husband still wouldn't admit it. "Dad, just stop it. Leave Mom and us. Disappear from our lives." The words from his son seemed to hit him hard. But my in-laws' obsession with money was relentless. "We don't know what the truth is, but if you want a divorce, go ahead. But we'll need a proper property division." We gave up our apartment and even quit our jobs to relax in that mansion today. Then my mother-in-law added, "That's right, John quit his job too. We have nowhere to live or work now. It's too convenient for you to just send us back. We'll make sure we get what we're owed." I was astounded. "Huh? You quit your jobs, both of you? Why would you quit your jobs just because you're moving houses? Are you stupid? Now I clearly see how much you were counting on my father's inheritance. You're the ones being too presumptuous." The hopelessness of my husband's and his parents' actions far exceeded my expectations. Either way, as his child, I'm supposed to inherit this estate. I'll be expecting a hefty property division. That's when my uncle stepped in again. "Listening to you talk one absurd thing after another, I can't believe how you come up with such ideas. There's no point in having a rational conversation with you. To put it bluntly, I'm a lawyer." "So what? How does that relate to anything? Don't you get it? The divorce will go through, and you'll be the one paying the property division." My husband and his parents still didn't seem to grasp it. "It's true that just Phil witnessing your affair isn't enough evidence, but a month ago, Mia hired me as a lawyer to investigate your infidelity." My husband's face gradually turned pale. "In the past month, you've met with a part-time worker at your workplace. Let's call her Mrs. A, 5 times about once a week, always at the same hotel. I know about the allowance Mia gives you. It's not enough, right? That's why you were always asking for more. What are you basing this on? Do you have any evidence?" I'm saying this because I have evidence. I have several photos. Shall I mention Mrs. A's name here? My husband had no choice but to admit it. You're having an affair. That's an undeniable fact. You won't get a penny from Mia, and you'll have to pay the damages instead. Finally, my husband and his parents seemed to understand the situation. "From now on, please handle everything through a lawyer and never show your faces to me again," I said firmly. My husband glared at me for a moment, but then looked away, and they all left the way they had come. "Thank you, Uncle. No problem." I was more motivated than usual since they were bad-mouthing my brother. "Once this is settled, I'm going back to my family. Mia, Bill, you live in this house. It's what your father and grandfather would have wanted. It's a shame for such a nice house to be empty. Okay, I'm happy to live here, I answered with a smile. Honestly, I had hoped for this outcome. Not just living in a mansion, but being able to live in a house full of memories with my father. Thank you, Uncle. This has been a great learning experience for the future. Good job, Bill. Investigating your own parents' affair is quite an intense work experience. Study hard in college and become a great lawyer. After that, my uncle successfully finalized the divorce. Bill and I began living in the house my father had lived in. It was too big for just the two of us, but I was very happy to be surrounded by memories. Bill seemed to have learned a lot from my uncle and was more committed than ever to his studies to become a lawyer. My husband and his parents ended up living in an old apartment. He struggled to find a new job due to his age and called me once. I need to borrow some money. His tone was different from before, not entitled but pleading. We're estranged. We're strangers now. I don't lend money to strangers. Don't contact me ever again. I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. Since then, there's been no contact from my ex-husband. My uncle told me they were getting by with part-time and day jobs. Apparently, his affair partner left him too because he was no longer financially stable. It turned out they never planned to go on the body trip and had borrowed money from somewhere unknown to me. They were planning to use the money to pay back their debts. I don't know who came up with such a scheme. It's irrelevant now, but I'm glad I cut ties with them. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, both physically and mentally. I'm going to work hard at the job I love. My immediate goal is to see Bill graduate from college successfully. You mean nothing to me now. You will never enter this house again. I heard my father's voice again, his scornful words. I left my family home in tears right out of high school with John. We were to be married just months later, by my side. I am Amy, 36 years old, and by trade now a farmer. It's been 18 years since I walked away from my family home. From this point on, the time I spend living my chosen life will surpass the time I spent in my family home, a thought that fills me with sentimentality. Our family home was in the city, with my father working in a corporate job and my mother as a stay-at-home mom. It was a family of 4, including my elder brother, born a year ahead of me. My parents were the sort who made no secret of ranking their children, with my brother always receiving preferential treatment. The meals we had and the grandeur of our birthday gifts were consistently superior for him. He flaunted his supposed superiority and always belittled me. Loneliness and cries for attention punctuated my childhood, but my parents remained unyielding. I eventually gave up. The turning point in my life came during the summer of my second year in high school. My brother, aiming for a top-tier university, was struggling with poor mock exam results. Frustrated, he vented his anger on me. My parents treated him with utmost care as if he were a fragile object, piling household chores on me, leaving no time for my studies. Because I outperformed my brother academically, they attempted to lower my grades to boost his spirits. It made no sense. During this time, a teacher at my high school mentioned a rural experience program. A 2-night getaway, immersion in country life. Students could stay at a host farm, harvest vegetables, and cook together. It was an opportunity to escape my toxic home environment, and I bravely signed up for it despite my father's objections. He had always dismissed agriculture as a career for those who couldn't secure corporate jobs, while my mother scoffed at me, questioning my sanity for willingly embracing manual labor and getting dirty in the mud. I defied my parents' opposition and used my saved pocket money to participate. It was the first time I'd ever gone against their wishes, and it turned out to be an excellent decision for me. Starved for familial love, it was a truly wonderful experience. Working in the fresh rural air was invigorating, and I discovered the warmth of a family. The eldest son of the host family, John, was a year older than me and the same age as my brother. At first, I was wary because of his age, but John was nothing like my brother. He was kind yet firm, got along well with his parents, and was equally kind to me. John's parents were genuinely gentle people. Though it was only 3 days, parting from the farm left me in tears, and John's mom cried alongside me, saying, "You're welcome back any time." I promised that I would indeed return. Since they didn't use their cell phones much, I started writing them letters regularly. Before long, I began receiving replies from John, and it evolved into an exchange diary. We eventually started dating, a pure long-distance relationship without even a kiss. As my brother failed to get into his first-choice university and ended up in a third-rate private college, I became a college applicant. However, my parents pressured me to get a job instead of pursuing higher education, claiming women didn't need an education. The real reason was likely their fear of me attending a better college than my brother. Since the rural experience, I had dreamed of becoming a farmer. While I could become a farmer without attending college, John was a college student who had moved to the city, deciding to pursue a college education and aiming for a new form of farming. With a clear goal in mind, I dedicated myself to daily studies despite interference from my parents and brother. Upon passing the university entrance exam, my father erupted in fury, questioning if I, as a woman, intended to attend a better university than my brother. My mother joined in, claiming they couldn't afford to support me because my brother needed the money. Devastated by their words and a massive argument, I chose to sever all ties with them. John, now my in-law's son, came to pick me up, and they generously supported my college expenses. 4 years later, I married John, never contacting my parents or brother during my college years. However, when my in-laws insisted we inform them about the marriage, my husband decided it was time to visit my childhood home for the first time in 4 years. The timing was chaotic during the planting season, so we could only make the visit at the beginning of summer. My husband, in-laws, and I arrived with sunburned and darkened faces from working outside. To our dismay, my parents and brother openly ridiculed us upon our arrival. My mother, in a condescending tone, questioned our financial status, stating, "No offense, but how old are you exactly? You must be quite poor to be working until you're all dark like this." Feeling mortified, I pleaded with her to stop, but she ignored me. My brother smirked and taunted, belittling those engaged in physical labor. I turned pale as the gentle smiles on my in-laws' faces froze. My husband firmly declared, "With all due respect, we are proud to be farmers." My father condescendingly laughed, disowning me at 18 and stating, "Just to make it clear, you're a stranger to us now. You're marrying a poor farmer who has to sweat and work hard. We're going to treat you as if you don't exist. It'll be a problem if you come asking us for money. We don't want to see you anymore." Already disowned at 18, I knew I was on my own, even without explicit confirmation. Despite this, I tried to maintain courtesies. The sympathetic looks from my in-laws and John were difficult to bear. On the way home, I quietly wept and resolved to forget about my biological family. Time passed, and 18 years flew by. The emotional wounds had thoroughly healed. I had given birth to 2 children, and my days were busy but fulfilling. Although I had virtually erased the memories of my parents and my brother, I was informed by a cousin that my brother was getting married. My cousin and I had always been close, occasionally meeting even after my marriage. At the wedding, my cousin said, however, I hadn't heard anything about the marriage plans of my parents or my brother. Well, since we're estranged, it's true that there's no way for me to know, I replied. I heard they are building a new duplex. I wonder if it's completed. Apparently, both my parents, my brother and his wife plan to move after the wedding. My cousin knew about the estrangement between my parents and me, that they seemed to think that I would attend weddings and funerals. After finishing the phone call with my cousin, I impulsively dialed my mother's cell phone number. However, I was met with an automated message saying, "This number is no longer in use." I tried calling my father next, and again, the same automated message. Had they changed their cell phone numbers? I didn't know my brother's number, so I couldn't call him. With trembling fingers, I dialed the landline for my family home, and it connected. My heart was pounding as I waited for someone to pick up. "Hello," my brother answered. "Brother, it's Amy," I said, hesitating over what to say next. About to offer congratulations, my brother cut me off. "There's no need for you to do anything. You're a farmer or a stranger to me. Don't call me," he yelled and hung up the phone. I rushed to call him back, only to find that I was already blocked. This was harsh. No matter how much he hated me, we were still family, and it hurt to be rejected like this. Seeing my distress, my husband was concerned and gently asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. When I told him about the conversation, both my husband and my in-laws were as furious as if it had happened to them. "Your home is here, Amy. Your family is with us," my mother-in-law reassured me. Her words moved me to tears, and I wished she was my real mom. She cared about me much more than my blood-related mother ever did. "You're happy now. That's all that matters. No need to get hurt. The one who laughs is the winner," my father-in-law said, comforting me. My husband chimed in, saying, "Let's take them as a bad example and make sure we don't turn out like that, even for our children." Not knowing the situation, he hugged me tightly. "Thank you, everyone," I said, feeling warmth in my heart, realizing how happy I was now, even though I wasn't blessed with a supportive biological family. However, things took a drastic turn when my business was featured on national television. My in-laws, originally large-scale grain farmers in the American Midwest, who also grew a wide variety of vegetables and fruits, had a lot of produce that didn't meet the standards. I had studied food business in college and spent a lot of time figuring out how to sell all the produce without waste. Backed by the local farmers union, I started an online business selling jams, juices, and pickles made from slightly damaged fruits and vegetables that couldn't be sold as they were. My business was a huge success. It was a hit with moms who wanted to feed their children safe, domestically produced food and seniors. The demand for nostalgic homemade pickles from those who cherished the taste of yesteryears led me to build a company. I collaborated with young women, like myself, who had married into farming families and unemployed individuals. Over time, it flourished into a $5 million business. Our success story garnered an in-depth report. Following the TV broadcast, we received a deluge of attention, orders, and inquiries. Amidst the constant ringing of both the company's phone and my personal smartphone, an unknown number caught my attention. Without much thought, I picked it up, only to discover it was my estranged brother. It appeared he had seen the national television feature on my success and wanted to borrow money to start a business. Swiftly and firmly, I rejected his request. Undeterred, my brother persistently screamed over the phone, urging me to stop arguing and give him the money, asserting that if a woman like me could start a business and make money, he was bound to be successful. The irony struck me. This was the same brother who had previously declared me a total stranger when I was just a simple farmer. Instead of responding to his pleas, I questioned him about why they hadn't informed me about the move. His surprising answer revealed that my brother's wife, a city girl, had influenced the decision to cut ties. The moment my name was mentioned, an insight into her character led me to believe she shared the traits of my brother and parents. A few hours later, an unknown number called again, revealing itself as my father. He demanded an explanation for why I, a woman, was a boss and accused me of stealing a man's job. I clarified that both John and my father-in-law were integral to the farming business, and it was only natural. Though somewhat convinced, my father questioned why I hadn't contacted them. I reminded him that he had disowned me, promptly hanging up and blocking his number. Moments later, my mother called, demanding money, stating that I was making $500 million a year and should send funds home. I explained that the business generated $500 million in total revenue after covering expenses and employees' salaries, leaving little left over. My mother accused me of lying, showing no embarrassment in persistently demanding money. Firmly, I asserted that I wouldn't send money to strangers, whether I had it or not, then hung up and blocked her number. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was mistaken. My parents, my brother, and his wife, who I had never seen before, showed up uninvited at my in-laws' house. My father announced, "Hey, Emmy, want to see the surprise?" I'm revoking the disarmament. Their desperation for money was astounding. Even my mother-in-law couldn't hide her disbelief and asked, "What on earth is going on with you people?" The discomfort was evident, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law glared at my parents in silence. Even the employees had gathered, staring at my parents with astonishment. It was clear that my brother was not welcome either, but he retorted, "The real blood connections are us. We have the right to share the money you earn too." The woman who seemed to be my brother's wife nodded in agreement with his words. I was seething. I don't think so. Even though we share a blood connection, there is no emotional connection at all. You treated me like a stranger and abandoned me. The emotional scars from being abandoned by my biological family resurfaced, and I was on the verge of tears once again. Just then, my husband John came and stood beside me. Emmy is now a part of our family. Even without you disowning her, we are perfectly happy. Please go home, he defended me firmly. The employees also spoke out against my parents, saying, "Were you thinking?" How rude. There are many people on my side here. As I realized that this was where I truly belonged, I felt profound happiness. My brother grew angrier and yelled, "Shut up, you country bumpkins. You're all low-educated trash, aren't you? Obey what we say." In silence, John calmly replied, "Well, both my father and I are Ivy League graduates, and Amy has graduated from a well-known agricultural university." This revelation about our educational background seemed to catch my brother by surprise. "Why are you farming despite being graduates of top universities?" he blurted out. John responded confidently, "Farming is a respectable profession where we can fully utilize what we studied in college." I couldn't help but burst into laughter amidst the tension of the situation. "Brother, you've lost to John in everything," I said, feeling a sense of relief. Perhaps I had been too afraid of my brother and parents. I wanted to make it unequivocal one last time. "We are already strangers." I paused for a moment, deliberately shifting to a more polite tone. "So I can't lend or give money to strangers. Please leave. If you cause a disturbance or act violently, I'll call the police and take legal action." I made it clear that our ties were severed. My in-laws and husband moved closer to me to shield me from any harm that my parents and brother might cause. I was deeply moved by their protective presence, feeling truly cherished. The employees also chimed in, shouting at my parents to leave. My parents, brother, and sister-in-law glared at us with resentment, but had no choice but to retreat. According to a story I later heard from my cousin, my brother and parents had attempted to get rich quickly through a business venture, accumulating debts. Instead of seeking financial assistance from me, that arrogant attitude had led to a significant failure, and now they were on the brink of bankruptcy. However, I had no intention of getting involved anymore. For me, my work was thriving, and I was surrounded by a true family, including respectable in-laws, a loving husband, and adorable children. I treasured every day, savoring the joy of life. In the aftermath of the tense confrontation with my estranged family, life continued to unfold in remarkable ways. I found solace and happiness in the warmth of my in-laws and my husband John, who stood by my side unwaveringly. The unwavering support of my new family proved to be the greatest treasure I could have asked for. My business continued to thrive, and I expanded it even further, working alongside my dedicated team. The success of our venture allowed us to explore new opportunities and make a positive impact on the community. We continued to provide high-quality, sustainable, and affordable products to our customers, and our business became a beacon of hope for those who believed in the power of hard work and resilience. The love and support I received from my husband John were an endless source of strength and inspiration. We cherished every moment raising our wonderful children in a nurturing environment filled with love and respect. The bonds between us grew stronger each day, and our home was filled with laughter and joy. Over time, I rekindled relationships with my extended family, including my cousin who had reached out to me. We forged deep connections based on trust, mutual respect, and shared values, a testament to the fact that family goes beyond blood. It is built on love, understanding, and shared experiences. As for my estranged family, they continued to face their own challenges and consequences. I wish them well from a distance, but remained steadfast in my decision to focus on my own path. The scars of the past were no longer an open wound, but a reminder of the strength and resilience I had discovered within myself. In the end, my story was one of triumph over adversity, of finding love and belonging in unexpected places, and of building a life based on my own values and aspirations. It was a testament to the power of choice and the incredible capacity of the human spirit to endure and thrive in the face of challenges. With the passage of time, my business continued to flourish and evolved into a community-focused enterprise. We started supporting local farmers and artisans, expanding our product range to showcase the talents of our region. Our commitment to sustainable practices, along with our dedication to quality, gained us a loyal customer base. This connection with our community allowed us to give back in various ways, from supporting local charities to hosting events that celebrated our shared values. As our children grew, we instilled in them the importance of hard work, empathy, and resilience. They witnessed firsthand the importance of family, not solely defined by blood, but by love and shared experiences. Our home became a sanctuary for their growth and development, fostering an environment where they felt loved, nurtured, and encouraged to pursue their dreams. The support from my in-laws remained unwavering. They were not just in-laws, they were family. I had chosen, and I couldn't be more grateful for their love and acceptance. My mother-in-law, in particular, became a cherished friend and confidant, offering her wisdom and guidance as I navigated life's challenges. Meanwhile, my cousin and I continued to build a strong and lasting bond. Our regular interactions allowed us to strengthen our connection, and we often found ourselves sharing life's joys and challenges. This relationship was a testament to the enduring power of the chosen family, where genuine love and understanding prevailed. In the broader scope of life, I found solace in my decision to leave the past behind. While my estranged family faced their own trials, I focused on the present and the future. My husband, my children, and the people who surrounded me were my pillars of strength. They reminded me that a loving, supportive family can be found in unexpected places. My story serves as a reminder that family is not solely defined by blood ties. It is a connection born from love, shared values, and mutual respect. I had come a long way from being disowned by my biological family, and the journey had made me stronger, more resilient, and deeply appreciative of the true meaning of family and the love that can be found in the most unexpected places.